Welcome to the settlement. My name is Fen, and today we're going to be doing a review of the Gorm, which will pretty much cap off all of the Gorm content on this channel until we get something new in the future. I've done a full dive into the Showdown and the Hunt phase and all of that side of the expansion in the Dark Bestiary, Chapter 2, I believe. And then on the settlement side of things, the Gormchemist, or the Gormery and you, I think it's the Gormery and you, covers all of the settlement side of everything. Instead here, I'm going to just give a broad overview, go through what's in the game, what's in the box, roughly what you can expect to get from this, how good I think it is, and then I'll end it with who I think this is good for, and some other expansions or monsters that have played really nicely with this in the past. So, we'll open up the box, and then over that screen we'll look at the contents, and we'll talk a bit about, just in the broadest sense, what the Gorm is. So let's get this open. Okay, here we are. So usually I don't talk over these on the openings, but this is one of the best ways to give a good, complete overview of everything you get inside the box. So you'll have this thin box here with, some packing peanuts in it, and you get 2 settlement locations, not 1, but 2. A bit different to the Frog Dog, which I've reviewed in the past. That has 1 settlement location for the normal version, and then a second higher level version for the Bullfrog Dog, which is like a aberrant, dangerous variant. Instead, these are both, they appear at the same time with the usual unlock, and they have, the Gormery is pretty standard and ordinary. The Gormchemist is still very much a unique location that doesn't feel like anything else. You of course get your rulebook, you get all of these miniatures, the Gorm, a pinup regeneration suit model, and then 4 Gorm armor kit survivors. In respect to the sculpts, the survivors do look a little small these days due to the fact that Kingdom Death's miniature line has had not 1 but 2 rounds of increasing scale. The first one happened at the start of the Gambler's Chest, and the second one happened during the Gambler's Chest. You actually have Gambler's Chest miniatures that are bigger than these, and then another lot of Gambler's Chest miniatures that are bigger after that. I don't think it takes too much away from them on the whole, so not all survivors have to be exactly the same size, and I'm a big fan of this very stitched together Frankenstein's monster kind of look, which is very crude and quite sort of stylish, a bit Catwoman or almost a bit vampire as well. So I think this sort of leather-clad aesthetic. The Gorm itself, this model, this is one of the reasons I play Kingdom Death at all. My introduction to Kingdom Death was via the Super Dungeon Explore crossover miniature, The Twilight Knight, which was, it's an okay hero in the Super Dungeon Explore game, but it's not amazing, but it does look really cool. Even had a reprint before everything completely collapsed in regards to Super Dungeon Explore, which, that's a shame. That's a Super Dungeon Explore Legends pledge I'm never going to see, which is really sad because it was offering what looked to be an incredibly good experience, but it's vaporware, it's abandonware now. Anyway, the second reason was this model. I still love this model to this day. Definitely it's been surpassed, but there is something wonderfully unsettling and creepy and weird and very 1980s physical sort of monster puppet type, animatronic or whatever. It feels like a horror creature. It feels like you could see this thing lumbering around in the background of some horror movie, just almost out of sight, and people get creeped out by it. It's just got the right mix of elephant and baby with his hands and head, and then all of this jaw anglerfish style thing going on. Still a great model. I've painted it a bunch of times. I wouldn't be surprised if I paint it at least one more time sometime in the future, although maybe I'll hope and wait to see if we get a remastered version at some point down the line. Because we have 2 settlement locations, we've got 2 decks of gear cards. The Gormery has more. This is the very traditional one. The Gorm Chemist has a bunch of potions. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Then we have our usual monster related decks, so AI, hit, hunt phase, hit location, resources, and strange resources. We get 1 armor set card. I do think it's a shame we don't get 2 armor set cards per expansion. Some of the sets you would only craft 1 of. Gormant, I've run 2 at times, usually 0 to 1 is what I normally run, but it'd still be nice just to get that extra card, especially if it turns out an armor set is something you really want multiples of. However, that's not the Gorm. Gormant armor, 0 to 1 is the number I usually craft. We've got all of these here, so we've got Disorders, Fighting Arts, and Secret Fighting Arts. These are shuffled in to the relevant decks when you are playing with the Gorm, and they're intended to be left out. That was updated rules for the Gambler's Chest. We've got this card here. We'll have a little discussion about this in the future. Not in the future, but a bit further down the line. This is one of the things to be aware of. And then we got this line of innovations that I'll also talk about. So, before we exit this screen, let's just kind of get into how you would integrate this expansion. So, the Gorm is a Node 1 monster. Node 1 are your introductory monsters. They are meant to be the prologue monster that you fight, and then the first monster that you will go out against as you start your campaign. They all provide different kind of focuses, and they can very much change the weapons that you're using. Node 1 monsters are a big deal. Because you encounter them first, because not every settlement is guaranteed to get to the end, you tend to fight Node 1 monsters more than any other type of monster, even more than Node 2s, because you get that extra fight at the very beginning. When it comes to complexity, I think the Gorm is more complex than the White Lion, but less than the Frog Dog and the Screaming Crocodile. Crimson Crocodile. I blended Crimson Crocodile and the Screaming Antelope together, then that sounds horrible. And the Crimson Crocodile. So I think it's a little step up, which means if you're looking for something a bit more complex to interact with and fight than just the White Lion, that's great. On a difficulty front, I think this one is still... I think it's the second most difficult of the monsters overall. Crimson Crocodile at Node 1 is definitely the most challenging, and I love it for that. It can turn on a dime. Things can get really desperate fairly quickly or things can look absolutely fine and woomph out of nowhere. And the far end of that would be the White Lion, that I think is genuinely the easiest. That's the point. It's the learning monster. So, a bit more complex, a fair bit more challenging. To give an example of what I mean, there is a AI card, I think it's called Flatten. It's Flatten or Trample. It is an advanced card, so it can turn up in the level 1 fight. I took this game to play with a bunch of my friends, and the very first fight they chose to play after the prologue was the Gorm. And first turn, it draws, I'll say it's Flatten, but it might be Trample. It draws a card and targets me and comes in and just kills my survivor immediately because of the amount of dice that attack rolls and the amount of damage it deals. And that was a real welcome to Gorm country, and I was absolutely here for it. It was just hilarious. It was just as well it happened to me and not any of my friends, so I could just concentrate on helping with the rules, helping people understand, and they get through killing the Gorm. So it was a heck of an introduction, and I absolutely loved it ever since that occurred. Now, there is one area where the Gorm is worse than all of the other Node 1 monsters, and that is because of the prologue. This is the only one that doesn't have its own prologue introduction. That's coming, I believe, in Campaigns of Death, fingers crossed. Until then, you can fight a normal white lion and then just go into Gorm. Or alternatively, you could choose to not play with a Node 2 monster and have a Node 1 monster come in Lantern Year 2 instead. I've done that in the past. Node 1 monsters are more challenging than Node 2 monsters for the most part, but they're still around the same power level overall. They're dealing roughly the same amount of damage. They just tend to not have specific weaknesses that are easy to get around. So that's one thing to be aware of. You probably either adding this in on top of a Node 1 monster, or you're fighting a white lion, you're using those resources for generic crafting, and then you're hunting a Gorm for the rest of the time. That should change in the future. Or Spiraling Cadaver made a prologue, his own version of the prologue introductory thing. That's on Board Game Geek on the file still. I think it's just pretty solid. It just gets the job done, and that's a nice alternative if you don't want to go white line into Gorm. I don't usually bother talking about house rules too much because they're very sort of personal as to whether you like them or not. I tend to be someone who prefers the purest way of playing, like as intended, but it's there as an alternative to cover until Team Death give us an official way, an official introductory fight with its probably, hopefully, really fun text for introduction to the monster. So I'm now going to put this all in my inventory, and I'm going to lay it all out, and then we'll get into some rough overview of the Showdown and the settlement sides of things. Okay, here we are, everything laid out. We'll start by just going through the Gorm to give a little bit more of context in respect to what it's like to fight this thing. And then we'll talk about the settlement side of things, mostly just going over the settlement locations and a little bit of discussion about this and these. So, on the Showdown side of things, one of the really interesting parts of the Gorm is how it levels up. So every monster in Kingdom Death, as they get older, they become tougher, they become more dangerous, and they become bigger, although that's not usually represented in the miniature. But to be honest, with a lot of them, I don't really feel a big difference between them, especially between level 1 and level 2. Obviously, there can be a big change that makes a given Showdown fight very dangerous. So it's not like they become humdrum. It's more of like a level 1 white line, a level 2 white line, and a level 3 white line. They don't feel too different to me thematically. They just feel like a more dangerous version. The Gorm is one of the monsters where I feel each and every single level is like a different stage in the Gorm's life cycle. I'm going to read here the Gorm text. This is the description that was put with the Gorm when it was released first in 2016. The Gorm travels enormous distances in their life cycles, shaping the landscapes with their enormous appetites and extreme bodily functions. Young Gorm roam the darkness, devouring anything that moves and many things that don't. During their mating season, older Gorms produce storms of incredible destruction. Ancient Gorm that have lived hundreds of lantern years will make a final solitary march to the fabled Gorm yards to die. The Gorm is a volatile quarry, but the complexities of its anatomy can unlock powerful tools for the settlement. And honestly, that's what's so sweet about this. Those three stages of the Gorm's life cycle, you feel them. Level 1 feels like the young Gorm. Level 2 feels like an adult Gorm that has moved into heat and is in the reproductive stage of their life. And then the level 3 feels like that ancient Gorm, like you're hunting and really old, long, sort of almost dried up individual. And I think that's one of the big things that makes the Gorm feel such a living creature compared to some of the other monsters. We don't always get a full overview of the life cycle, and to be honest, sometimes that's fun as well. That's the mystery. But it's sweet to have creatures that feel like David Attenborough could sit down and narrate the whole life cycle of them in a documentary, because it's kind of all laid out to us here. And I think that's really sweet. Additionally, this was one of those like monsters that had, again, a lot of incentive to hunt the level 3 and the level 2. Some people are shy about the level 2 because there are some nasty elements to it that can make it more challenging. I personally like that. I like that step up. But I do think the level 3 Gorm is genuinely really, really good. The Gorm was designed by Anna Poots. Apparently, if I am paraphrasing Adam correctly, it was all Anna, all of Anna's work. And I'll be honest, I see it, and I really feel like I've not spoken to Anna in person. I've never had a chance to ask this question, but I feel like a lot of this is the catharsis of a young parent. There's a lot of elephant in here. There's a bit of anglerfish, but there's also an awful lot of a young child, of a baby. The Gorm, when you fight it, in part it encourages you to fight it like a mammoth hunt, and the mechanics actually do get you to stay out of the blind spot to a certain degree and hunt it on the sides, and also reward you for using reach weapons. And that's because of this core mechanic it has called retch, where if you hit the monster, as a reaction it will retch, which is similar to the White Lion's grab, but instead of rushing forward and knocking down and grabbing and pulling away anyone that it goes over, the Gorm bounces back a couple of steps and then throws up a lot of the really volatile and dangerous chemicals that are inside the Gorm. So it's like, you know, you're tapping the Gorm, you're patting the baby, and it suddenly just throws up on you. That's a really interesting shift to how you fight this monster. The Wretch is genuinely very threatening because it bypasses armor and it goes straight to injury boxes, which is pretty scary. And if you think about what it's like, a level 2 deals 2 damage directly to injury boxes, and level 3 deals 3 damage directly. That is something that you've got to really watch out for on the occasions that they do retch, and it is a thing that you can learn to counterplay, which is really sweet. The other thing that is interesting is the Gorm has a lot of high quality resources. So if I just pull these off, and we'll get to one in a moment. Most of the resources you can see here, they're kind of normal, but then this is like the mammoth hand here is a bone, hide, and an organ. This is what I mean by high quality. So it drops very similar to any other Node 1 monster, but the resources you get are far more flexible if you're using them for generic crafting, which is a nice reward for fighting the monster. It's a really clever way of rewarding you for fighting a more difficult monster than the White Lion, in that you don't get more resources, you get better resources. So that's all really sweet. I just think this Showdown is fantastic. It feels like fighting an elephant. It often has moments of extreme, like, this is getting really bad, and concern. And it also has moments that are frankly hilarious. There's one critical hit that causes the Gorm to flee. And we knocked the Gorm over, level 1 Gorm, and it was just lying there. And when a monster's knocked down, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't react. If you hit the trap, then boom, it's coming back at you, but you've got like a turn to beat on it a bit. And a friend I was playing with, Nick, punched it and critted it and hit this crit, resulting in the Gorm zooming away from all of us while still staying laid down. And it was just this moment where we were like, what would that look like? And either we go with the anime version of Nick uppercutted it so hard that it flew into the air before landing in a crumpled pile, or I pitched that it just did like a roll, like a big like baby squealing roll away from him after being punched. It's just kind of, it feels alive. It's funny. It's very good at telling an emergent story during the Showdown. So I do think this is a phenomenally good fight. And definitely in the first generation of them, it's it's one of the best early game fights there is, in my opinion. Not perfect, has a couple of rough patches that hopefully get smoothed over in the future, but still, I'd say as a follow-up Node 1 for after you've learnt the White Lion, it's a hard act to beat. Over on the settlement side, we have the biggest thing which you need to pay attention to, which is Gorm climate. So this is going to get inflicted on you right from the start. You cannot get rid of it until you've innovated the correct innovation and beaten the right level of the monster. In truth, I don't think this is particularly bad. In fact, there's some benefits to it. For example, where is it? You get benefits of storytelling. If you have Hovel, it can provide you with home innovation and bonuses. So it's not like they're automatically terrible. And also here, this is really sweet. If you don't have storytelling and you draw Gorm climate on this 8, 9 or 10, you can actually improve a newbie survivor by giving them a bit of extra courage before they first go out. So there are benefits. But the scary thing is this 1 to 3 result. You will lose all resources in the settlement storage. Now, so as you can avoid this by dismantling innovation to create a protective barrier, I don't think you should be doing that. Some people do it with the free innovation that you get for beating the level 1 Gorm. I'm not a big fan of doing that either. I actually just think the smart thing, right thing to do is you never leave anything in the settlement storage that you can't afford to lose. And if it happens and you roll this, it happens. But again, dipping into house rules, if you wanted a softer time, you could just shuffle Gorm climate into the deck and not put it into play immediately. It will make the campaign a lot easier, it will, but maybe that makes it more fun if you're teaching the Gorm to newer players. Or maybe you put Gorm climate and have it come in at like Lantern Year 5 or something. In short, Kingdom Death is a sandbox game. I will play with Gorm climate from the start. I have a grand time. I think it is interesting how it forces me to play differently without being unfair. But there, other options are available. On the disorder front of the fighting art, just a couple of things to notice. This fighting art here is really hard to make a great use of. This one's really fun. There's also this megalophobia is really sweet. Your survivor becomes afraid to hunt anything that's Gorm size or bigger. So if it's a 3x3 monster or a 4x4 monster, you can't hunt it anymore. This absent seizures is a bit of a nightmare as well. On the fighting out front, this is great. Mammoth hunting, it ties really nicely into the theme of everything. They're fine. I don't think there's any broken fighting arts or disorders here, so it's not too much to say. Gear. So first of all, on this side, the Gormery, we've got our standard armor set. Gorman armor is okay. It's a bit expensive for what it does. It's better than White Lion armor. It's trying to be I would say a Wolverine style armor set, where instead of soaking all the hits, you are supposed to just not worry about the severe injuries, and at highest level you'll just regenerate them all afterwards. Unfortunately, it's still expensive for what it is, but it does have a cool element where you can upgrade it with the regeneration suit. So it's like, slots. Yeah, talk about that in a second. You can upgrade it with the regeneration suit, which effectively increases its armor points by an extra 5, and it increases the length of time you can play with it. And the regeneration suit ties really, really nicely into this concept of regenerating your injuries instead of just like trying to avoid taking them at all. It's a super interesting playstyle. Team Death nearly got it right here. They nearly did. Just a little bit of work on this armor set and it will be really, really fun. So I hope it gets a revision in the future. If it doesn't, it's still worth saying that this is unusual because it's a 4-slot armor set, giving you an extra slot free in your gear grid. I've actually made very good use of that with bows, so it's cool that this actually can be used in an unorthodox manner as a bow armor set. The regeneration suit is an accessory, so there's a ton of other armor sets that will benefit from this, especially as it has so many green affinities. So in other words, this is an okay armor set. You might want to craft it more than White Lion. I don't think it's better than Screaming Antelope armor, but I also am of the opinion that Screaming Antelope armor is a bit undercooked at the moment as well. So there's nothing wrong with this armor set that a couple more affinities and somewhere between 3 and 5 more armor points wouldn't fix. Yeah. On the weapon side, the Gorm is like really good. You get grand weapons, axes, a mace that's quite hard to get, a like late game sword that's really cool, and the first really good dagger that you can get your hands on, plus a non-noisy instrument, which that might change in the future, but non-noisy instruments are really fun. An amazing utility item with the pulse lantern, and then armor spikes here too. They're one of the gear cards of all time. In particular, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is really good, this is really good, this is good, this is good, this is good. This, yeah, there's almost no real duds in here, and the only reason the Gax isn't great is you can see it uses one of the same crafting resources as the Greater Gax, and the Greater Gax is doing everything the Gax wishes it could, but better. I do like these affinities though in combination with White Line armor. There's actually a layout that it appreciates, which is interesting that a number of these things work better with White Line armor than they do with anything else. The Knuckle Shield is clearly designed to try and work with the Gorman armor, which has this shield retreating, so you block a hit and then you retreat, like the Gorm retching and throw it and retreating. But it just doesn't quite click together because of no red affinities here, and the set needs a red affinity, so you end up having to add an extra weapon or resource or not resource, gear card into the grid to get that red affinity. A common pairing is Knuckle Shield plus Pulse Lantern or Steadfast Potion. It's just tough. Like when you've got an armor set that has shield synergy but doesn't have the affinities it needs, suddenly you can be in a bit of an awkward spot. Still, by itself, Knuckle Shield's amazing. You can just run that in with Rawhide armor. You will love it. This shield, because you get it so early, it's like the spiked buckler in the Frog Dog, in that they both utterly dominate the level 1 Screaming Antelope, just trivialise the fight. But block's amazing. We all know that. Note on the Black Sword, very, very, very good. Very fun. We've had for a long time now. So the Black Sword, once you... it has a mechanic that if you are a sword master, it gets a ton of extra strength, pushing it to 30 strength, which is like wounds almost every monster in the game on a 2+. And that's really fun to build up this sword master. It's worth noting that there is Vagabond armor, which is an armor set that just gives you the mastery, or effectively gives you the mastery as long as you're wearing the armor set. Currently, and Team Death have not said this isn't the case. That means that you can just have a Black Sword with Vagabond armor, and you've just got a survivor who doesn't worry about wounding anything ever again. So that's for people who want that kind of power, it's there. But for people who want to play and earn the respect of the Black Sword by wielding it and leveling up your sword mastery, this is a very fun, very, very sweet element. It feels like a journey, and with family you can have them passing the sword down from one generation to the next, and I didn't master it, but maybe you will. It's kind of a really sweet idea, and I like it a lot. And this Riot Mace is amazing. You can only get it via the Death Blow, because this Pure Bulb is a Death Blow only resource, so it makes it kind of rare, but it is such a fun, powerful weapon, and because it's a club, you can use it all campaign thanks to Lantern Armor. So yeah, the main things there. Armor set's better than White Line armor, but still not great. And you get a Grand Sword, Rib Blade's ridiculously good. You get a shield early, that's really good. You get a really good axe. You can potentially get a really good sword and club and a good dagger. So there's very few outside of what I've already highlighted. There's very few duffers in here. Armor spikes, and then Gax and Gormant. Gormchemist is the really fun one though. So this settlement location, as you can see, looks super different. Basically you spend organs to perform alchemy, and that's where these come in. So as you can see, you've got this mechanic of you transmute, you spend 2 organs and roll a d10 on this table, and you can see that a d10 will go on these two results, but won't get any higher up. You can get higher by getting these Gorm innovations, which is this lineage of them, starting with Negredo and then leading up across them all to Albedo. It's Citronus, yeah, and then Rubedo. These are all like steps of alchemy. It's very, very, very cool. And they give you more dice. So each one of them you have innovated gives you extra dice to roll on here. And that's where some incredibly powerful and interesting things are. The random Gorm resource isn't terrible to turn 2 organs into a random Gorm resource if you didn't care in the first place. But this and the healing potion is fine. But everything from here upwards, especially these 3 and this, are sweet as heck. Wisdom potion, every node 1 monster currently has a version of the Cat Eye Circlet in some form. Wisdom potion is the Gorm's. It gives you, as you can see here, the top card of the hit location deck revealed. So it's not as powerful as the Cat Eye Circlet, but it is almost it's because it's passive and it's constantly happening. It's just less effort. And if you combine it with grand weapons who only have other slow weapons that only have 1 speed, you don't even notice the negative of this. You just get perfect information on every single attack. So it's very cool. I'll be honest, it's only my 3rd favourite of all of the options we have, but it's still pretty sweet. There are the Steadfast Potion, which is a support potion for blocking, so more shield synergy. Power Potion is for the offense. It's great. Life Elixir is usually meh, but if you are looking to play that Wolverine character, play full Gorm armor and just be like, I don't care about my armor points and my injuries, I just don't want to die, the Life Elixir will allow you to avoid the first time you roll a death. And then Gormite helps you construct the Black Sword and is also just a very good high quality resource. So that's it. That's the walkthrough of all the bits and pieces without getting into too much detail. Well, I tried to not get into too much detail, but you know me, I talk. So let's just briefly go through what expansions this or monsters this works really well with, and then who I think this is good for. So the Gorm, I think it's really good with the White Lion, like very good. It's also great with Spidiculus. Spidiculus is a more dangerous monster, and the Gormant weaponry giving you more power helps you maintain and go up against Spidiculus, at least on the offensive side. I think it's really good with any bow-based monster, so Flower Knight, Sunstalker, Phoenix, they all have like nice bows on them, and Gormant armor, as I said, pretty good with the bow. Again, Catgut bow, Gormant, White Lion. And also this is a part of the Green Knight expansion, so you've got all of the links between it and the other knights, Green Armor itself. So it's an essential if you want to play the Green Armor campaign, which is a very fun challenge to put together. The challenge is getting the armor. The reward is then you get to slap anything that gets in your way and beat the heck out of them, which is a suitable reward, I think. And that's going to get expanded in Campaigns of Death too. So it just works really well all the time. And for an awfully long time, when people said, what expansion should I get? The answer was the Gorm. I still think that's true. If you are finishing your first few plays and you're like, I want something other than the White Lion to fight early on, the Gorm is fantastic. If you've got any goals towards playing the bigger challenges, you really like having the Gorm. And the way it changes the early game is fantastic. The only negative we have in this sort of situation in the world we're in now, where things aren't quite meeting up properly, is the Gorm is an older design. It has a couple of exploitable areas that just takes you to decide if you want to do that or not. But it'd be nicer if they weren't there. And very significantly, it doesn't have any patterns. It doesn't have any indomitable resources for indomitable patterns, although it does have some extra indomitable survivors, Morg and what's his name? Hang on. Tip of my tongue. It's the dude with the double knives. Grimory, that's his name, yeah. So that you can get a couple of at least the indomitable resources if you don't mind spending a bit extra. But it is currently that element's missing. There's no scout cards either for it, so it's in a transitional period. If you wanted a Node 1 monster that tied into all of that immediately, the Frog Dog would be the choice, or the Crimson Crocodile, but that comes with a Gambler's Chest. So I think if you're stepping from core game only to core game plus, this is the first stop and first purchase. If you're looking for more, you might be getting the Gambler's Chest, and if you get the Gambler's Chest, you probably want to wait until we see what Campaigns of Death can do. However, honestly, you just still can't really go wrong with this. So I think this is like an easy 8 or 9 out of 10 expansion. It still holds up. It's still fun to fight. It's never easy. As I say, personally, it's my second favourite Node 1 monster after the Crimson Crocodile, so I do very much recommend it personally. And that's it. That should be everything to do with Gorm until we get some new content, so it's nice to check that off. Next video will likely be either about the Tusk Works and you, or it will be the Flower Knight. It depends which one comes together the most. And then, again, as always, kind of alternate them all. So, anyway, I've been Fen. This is a review of the Gorm. I give it 2 thumbs up, 2 big baby palm thumbs up, and I recommend it. I think it's great. Especially recommend it on the simulator with the lower price, but in physical, I still think it holds up really well. It is a great expansion. Yeah. So, thank you for listening. A huge thank you to my patrons, especially those at the pillar tier and above. I wouldn't be able to do these videos without my patrons. I really appreciate that. And until next time, happy hunting.